So I made a marionette of Niffty from Hazbin Hotel, and this was one of the messiest projects I've ever done, so strap in and come along for the ride. This project started very tame and very organized by me making a sketch. My idea was to make an entire series of Hazbin Hotel marionettes, and so I did a sketch of the tallest character I wanted to make and of the shortest character. The tallest character being Angel Dust. I know there's taller characters than him, but I don't really want to make those. And then Niffty, there's not really a shorter character than her. And I was either thinking of starting with Angel Dust or with Niffty, and in the end I decided on Niffty just because I thought she might be a bit easier to make because she has 2 arms instead of 4. So I took the sketch I made, one from the front and one from the side, and I printed these out twice. One of which I cut apart and turned into pattern pieces that I then transferred onto wood. This was cut out on my bandsaw, and I'm not going to show you that because the blade was definitely too close to my fingers, and I'm not going to be a bad role model on the internet. I might tell you about the stupid things I do, I will not show them to you. And then I just kinda went to town with my Dremel tool, and let me tell you, I don't really like the Dremel. It's too small for everything I want to do, basically, so I end up using it very rarely, but this was one of the projects where I actually did use it. For the arms, I was a bit afraid that they were too brittle, so I inserted some metal pieces before carving and then carved them later on. Don't know if that was necessarily necessary, but I did it. With all the carving done, I moved on to the joints. I do very simplistic leather joints most of the time, so for those you put a slit into both body parts that you want to stick together. Then you just insert the leather into the slit, and then you can trim all the excess leather. And here you can already see the first issue and the biggest issue of this doll. The knee is not quite kneeing like it's supposed to knee. And at that point I ignored it. At that point I was like, okay, yeah, I can probably fix this later on. Not really. And you will see what's wrong and why exactly that is wrong later on in the video. But for now, I continued on with all of the joints in place. I painted her body black, and then I got to the head. I decided to sculpt the head digitally, just because why not? And then I printed it out in 3 pieces, the face, the back of the skull, and the eye. And then I did a pretty, classic face up. I spray painted her face white. I went in with a layer of sealant, more specifically Mr. Super Clear, and then I used some soft pastels and colored pencils to draw in her face. It was pretty simplistic and pretty relaxing, to be honest. The hardest part about painting the face is always the other eye. And she does not have another eye, which honestly, great. I felt like I was doing pretty good. And then after the face up was done and I was happy with it, I made my first crucial error. For some reason, I decided to not look at references before painting the eye. I just felt like I had a good grasp on what the eye looked like. I did not, because I left the sclera white and painted in a pupil that was red and yellow. And I put the eye in, it looked so off, and I was like, why does this look so wrong? What's going on? And then I finally looked at a reference image and I realized her sclera is red. What the hell? What am I doing? And so I sanded all of that off again and I restarted, and I painted in a nice kind of gradient from yellowy orange to red. And I painted in her pupil, and I used a little star charm, or I think it's a flower, for a highlight, and I coated this in a layer of UV resin, and then we finally had an eye that actually looked like the character. Now with all of that done, it was time to move on to hair and clothing, and I did the hair first. Honestly, I did not. I'm lying to you outright, but I wanted to show you the hair first. So here we are. For this, I decided to go the professional route, or the way that I've seen Moonlight Jewel do it. And I covered her head in a piece of stretchy fabric. I put on a few layers of PVA glue, and then I had a wig cap. For the hair, I used faux fur because that's what I own. And I just stuck that on with hot glue, and it worked pretty well. It was fine. After that, I styled the hair with a steamer and a chopstick. And if you've seen my last video about the Monster High art doll I made, you already know that I I'm not very good at hair, and I wasn't very good at doing this hair either, so I didn't film a lot of it because I got very frustrated. And I don't mind telling you that I was struggling, but I don't necessarily like to show it to you, mostly because I don't want people to copy what I do when I'm doing something wrong. But like, please let me know what you think about that. Would you like to see me struggling with something? Do you think you have like any kind of value from that? Or would you rather me leaving it out? Moving on, as a last step on the hair, I took some fur and glued it to the inside of the wig cap because I wanted the edges of the cap to be invisible. Not sure if that was necessary, but I did it anyways. So the skirt is a very simple half circle skirt, if that means anything to you. And I made a pattern digitally, and I painted out the little poodle she has on her dress, and I used dye sublimation to put that poodle onto her skirt's fabric. And just so you know, the heat press I'm using in this video is by Cricut. It broke like 2 weeks after I recorded this. The insurance has run out like a month before that. It would not be replaced, it could not be repaired, and customer service was not very nice. So if you want to buy a heat press, don't get that one. Just get the opposite of whatever Cricut does. The fabric I used here was 100% polyester, which means it melts with heat. So I took it to a flame and I singed the edges so that they would not fray, which worked very well. I then sewed it up, I added some buttons, and then I just had to put her together, and this is the finished Niffty. Now you might think that wasn't as awful as I thought it would be. Here's the issue with the doll. She is tiny, and she is just too light. Like, she does not function. She does not move the way she is supposed to move. And when I try to walk her, her entire body just kind of jiggles around. And I want to give you a sense of scale here because I feel like most people don't have any idea how tall a marionette should be. This is Rubizal. He is my favorite marionette I've ever made, and he is, according to the person who taught me marionette making, the ideal size for a marionette for theatre. He will be seen from afar, he's pretty hefty, and he's also pretty heavy, and you can see that these kinds of joints that he has too work perfectly well for him. He's pretty mobile. Generally speaking, if he stands on his feet and if there's really weight on his body and you move his head around, then he will look around without moving his entire body along with it, which Niffty does not. And the truth is, I already figured out that Niffty was not working partway through making the doll, but I still wanted to persevere and I still wanted to give her a chance. I kind of lost motivation in recording, that's why I have so little footage of the end of building her, but also I thought, I can't show this to anyone if she doesn't work. And in the end I decided, well, I can show you anyways. I can show you the mistakes I've made along the way, and so you now know what's wrong. And so I decided, heavy-heartedly and kind of frustrated, that was not going to cut it and that I had to redo the entire doll. And so that's what I did. I made a second Niffty marionette. I have no footage of this, by the way. I also have no images. I just have this, which is a view of the digital sculpt, so I decided to sculpt her digitally instead because I knew I could do that quicker. And I put in the slits for the leather joints, which I probably should have done other joints, but I was trying to stick what I had learned and I didn't want to teach myself a new method for joints. And then I printed her out, I redid the entire face, I redid the entirety of the clothing, I redid the hair, which was considerably more complicated because she's quite a bit bigger. I think she's about double the size. And so this is the second Niffty next to the first Niffty. She is still tiny in comparison to Rubizal, and she still doesn't work very well, but she works considerably better than Niffty version 1. So yeah, this is my odyssey of making a Niffty marionette finally finished, with 2 marionettes instead of 1. And because I enjoyed that so much with my Mortimer Handy puppet, here's a little clip from the show that I redid with my marionette. I hope you enjoy.
Sometimes I kill mother bugs in front of their children as a warning to others. Yay, pain! Pain.
I hope you enjoyed this chaotic journey more than I did, because I did not enjoy it too much. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and also, should I actually make more Hazbin Hotel marionettes?